Hello, welcome. Welcome to the Permission Mission Show. My name is Mary McElhatton. I am your host today. And thank you for joining me. We had a fantastic show last week. I had my daughters on the show. That was a big thing to overcome. Me as a mother, we talk here openly and discuss openly the topic of mortality. And yeah, I had my girls on the show because I figured I never want to have a regret that I didn't speak to them ahead of time about something that is so important and that is happening daily and that will happen no matter whether we want to deal with it or not. So today's show is about regrets, and this is certainly not one that I will ever regret by opening up this conversation called death and having a better understanding of it, educational wise, brave wise, and also the memory that I will cherish forever with my girls on the show last week is something that is going to be priceless. So I wanted to start off with a great quote by Lucille Ball. It's perfect for and fits totally into what we're talking about today. And she said, I'd rather regret the things I've done than regret things I haven't done. Talking about mortality is something I am doing, and so are you. If you're watching this show every week, we broadcast it live here in Las Vegas every Friday at 11 a.m. on the WWDBTV, whether that's the .com, WWDBTV.com, Facebook, website, also Permission Mission Facebook, and the Mary McElhatton Facebook. Please tune in. You never know who may be dealing with something in their life right now that they're afraid to talk about openly, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's somebody who's sick in their family, or maybe they're going through some health issues themselves. And when it comes to, this whole sensitive subject of mortality, it is easier just to shut it down. It's easier to walk away from it. It's easier to ignore. I'll be the first to tell you, back in 1981, when I lost my brother, I wanted to talk about it, but nobody did back then, and we didn't. So I never pushed it. Today, that's different. I have had so much healing in my own heart that I never expected to come out of losing my brother. And then I lost another brother. And my mom lost her first child in the 50s to polio. And she sat in the silence for many, many years until she openly talked about her daughter passing away and the life of the 9 months she had with her. It was, again, one of those moments that we will never regret because we did it. And we overcame all the fears that can stop us from saying something that we want to say, but for whatever reasons, we've been taught, conditioned, thinking that it's easier to not say it. Yet when we overcome it and we actually do it, it produces a whole different arena for us in this today life, because we do only have one shot at it. And I'm sure you're like me, where we want to get the most out of it. We want to take the time to love our families, even the ones that are pain in the butts. I have one of those families. I know that I am sometimes the pain in the butt. I have been told by my siblings, though, that I have changed quite a bit working in the industry that I work in over the last 10 years. I work in the mortality business. I'm very proud to say that I work there. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that the first couple years because it was still very new to me. I was like, oh my gosh, people don't want to hear that I work at a mortuary. And something shifted in me. Just one day, I was like, I'm confident in what I'm talking about. I care about what I'm talking about. I want other families to feel the same way. Permission Mission has grown tremendously because of my confidence in this topic. And you too will become more and more at peace by talking with your family openly and proudly and boldly as anything and that's important in life that you want to do. I know for me, it was finding my voice, and my voice has definitely become louder and prouder by doing what I do for a living and also just being okay about my own mortality so that I can help others to be at peace with planning and preparing for their departure, but also helping other family members prepare. I get a lot of people reaching out to me, and it's pretty much the same thing. Like, Mary, how do you start? Like, where do you start? Like, it's scary. I don't want to bring it up to my parents because they may think that I'm, I don't know, trying to push them out the door or something. No, no, no. Listen, we've just got to be just confident that yes, mom, dad, listen, I know one day I'm going to go. I want to be there and helping you guys plan to have it the way you want it at the end. If you're not comfortable with it, then if you trust me enough, then I'll take care of it. I'll get the information and then we'll just start there. It's one of those things that once it's done, you feel the pressures and the relief that not having the conversation at all will be there no matter what. It's like the elephant in the room just gets bigger and bigger and bigger the longer we avoid it and the longer we pretend that it's not there. I want to make sure to give a voice to the one thing that you know that it's important to speak about. Like, what is important to you? Did you have a time in your life that, I don't know, maybe it was the best time in your life, maybe it was the hardest time in your life, that you went through a situation where you just connected with it? I was 14, my brother passing away. Life was good, and then all of a sudden life was different. Think back to that moment that you knew that there was something that happened to you or happened in your family that it was important to you that maybe nobody talked about, or you wanted to talk more about it, know more about it, but you got kind of the pushback and you just forgot about it. I want you to bring that moment back here today and just think about it, because that may be your ultimate purpose and place to get curious again about, as it was for me. I'm so glad that I kept going. I could have given up a long time ago, but I wasn't going to lay it down at 14, and I'm certainly not going to lay it down at 58. By the way, 58 is great. I just celebrated my 58th birthday, and I'm beyond excited. And I feel probably the youngest I've felt in a long time, because aging is just one of those things that really is truly a number. In my industry, no age matters. Every age is important, because it just determines what amount of time we get to live on this earth. But even a person who's been here 9 months, like my sister, her life was important as much as it would have been for a person who lived here 84 years. So back to finding your voice and what you want to take a stand for and what you want to start really openly speaking up about. Maybe it's the family member who got in an addiction and you were too afraid to say anything because if it did, it just caused a lot of confusion, a lot of fights. Speak up, because if there's one thing I've learned the last couple of years with dealing with losing people I love, feeling like I can't say to them what I want to say, not wanting to rock the boat. Why would we not want to rock the boat if that's the only chance we get to rock the boat? When my daughter on the show last week, she talked about her addiction and that it had started at the age of 12. Now, I, as a mother, when I heard that, there were two things that happened. Number one, I was so proud of her to not be ashamed of what meant something to her, something that started in her life that she probably didn't want to, but it did. I, on the other hand, as her mother, didn't want to talk about drugs and things like that because I never did them. So I just assumed that nobody else did them. Well, that didn't help my kids. You know, it was back when they did a lot of sports, and it was back when pain pills became very readily and available. I don't know if your family had this happen, but mine did with two of my children. And I really wished I regret not going back to that place of asking questions, knowing something was off, knowing things were difficult. I was going through a really difficult divorce. My ex-husband and I, we just, were dealing with our own issues where I just missed that my children were going through a lot too. So I had shared on other shows that divorce and death are the two most stressful events ever. And it's funny that those are the two things that are most stressful and most impactful on families, but they're the least talked about. I'm not dogging divorce, and I'm certainly not dogging death. I'm just saying, if these are the most stressful things in life, wouldn't we want to be more openly discussing them with one another so that there could be some better ways of dealing with it, having some coping skills to recognize when things are off and say something about it? I mean, I was a naive mom. I didn't talk about drugs because I didn't do them, but I had been around them my whole life. And who was I to think that any of us would get out of doing something that we said we'd never do, but all of a sudden we're caught in an addiction ourselves and we don't want to be doing it. I always told my kids, because they punish themselves enough, I always said, look, I love you no matter what. I don't like what you're doing, but I'm not going to not talk about it anymore. I want to be here for you. I want to figure this out with you. Help me to understand. Help me to be brave, which you have. To my daughter, Kayla, and my son, Austin, you've brought me to places in my life that I never wanted to go. I wanted to always play it safe. And the reality is that you really have helped me become braver by talking about tough things. I don't ever want them to feel ashamed because, like I said, they've done enough punishment to themselves. Why do I want to keep punishing them more? I want to be here to help. I want to be here to understand. I want to be here to help them know that death is real, and that if we don't discuss it, it may end up taking you the way that you don't want to go out. Again, don't have control over how we go at the end of the day, but gosh dang it, if we have a little bit more knowledge about it ahead of time, we might make some different choices down the road. I wasn't talking to my children at 5 and telling them about that people die. I held them very close to me. I sheltered them a lot. I wanted to protect them a lot. Again, I wanted to ignore the things that I didn't want to deal with because it was too hard. It was something I wasn't familiar with. I didn't feel smart in the area of talking about drugs because I just didn't want them around me. But the truth is growing up in a home of addiction, it's in me too. So we're not far off the track from one another, whether you're addicted or not. Two people are dealing with it differently, one in the addiction and one a part of the addiction. And what I'm saying today, and I hope that I'm coming across clear, is speak up. If you see something out, speak up, sit them down, tell them something doesn't seem right. I waited a little bit too long and the addictions got out of control in our home. And I don't regret that I was silent, but I do regret that I let this wall become a part of my relationship with my children because I was too afraid to climb over it with them. I was too afraid. I was afraid of failing at it or not being the perfect mother. And the truth is the perfect mother would go over the wall with her kids if they've gone off track, whether they're on track or in track or on track, out of track. You're going to be the parent who cares and do the best. Oh my gosh, Anna, I love you, lady. You are one amazing mother. Well, yes, well, it takes one to know one. And absolutely, if any of you are out there listening to today's show, please put a question in the remarks. Call me on my cell, 702-812-1435. Let me know what your thoughts are. What are some hard things that you haven't been able to talk about openly with your kids? What are things that are holding you back from speaking up to go out and live the big dream that you've only thought about since a kid? Because you've had it stopped. Maybe somebody told you couldn't talk about that, or it wasn't polite to talk about that, or, that's a big dream. It's too far fetched. No. Today, Permission Mission is a platform and a show that allows us permission to talk about tough stuff, to be real and authentic and not be ashamed of it. I watched my daughter say that on TV last week. I started in addiction at 12, and yes, we almost lost her. And she had prearranged her pre-plans because she thought about being a mother and how that would impact her children. And I couldn't have been more proud of her to be that responsible. It was hard. I remember that day thinking, no, kids don't go before their parents, but that is a lie too. So Permission Mission is revealing the lies that we tell ourselves every day, that we wake up and we expect to be happy, but yet we're living all these lies that make no sense. And now we're not. Now we're saying, hey, I'm curious about knowing more about mortality. I want to know. I want my family to know my wishes. I want my family to have some preparations in place so that we can relieve ourselves of the pressure, of the stress of knowing this day will come and being better prepared for it. We're going to take a short commercial. Stay with me. We'll be right back. And I promise you, I've got some more good stuff. So be back in a moment.
Are you looking for someone to provide training to your staff? Do you need a motivational speaker about how to handle change? Do you have an upcoming event that needs an MC to handle those responsibilities? Well, look no further than longtime Las Vegas radio personality Aaron Phillips. I am local to Las Vegas, and I can blend my talents with any audience. For more information, please visit www.aaronshour.vegas and book me for your next event or training needs.
Hi, my name is Edgar Alejandro. I'm the co-founder of Rising Again Productions. So we've been here in Vegas producing films for the past couple of years, and we've seen our fair share of studios. We've worked in our fair share of studios, and to be honest, WWDBTV has been our favorite by far. John is so welcoming. The space is wonderful. It's perfect for what we need. We've had rehearsals here. We've had callbacks here. We've had table reads here. So if you're a Vegas creative, or really just a creative coming into Vegas, definitely check out this space. Chat with John. I think you'll find that this studio has everything that you'll need as well.
Welcome back to the Permission Mission Show. My name is Mary McElhatton. I'm your host today at the broadcasting live in Las Vegas at the WWDBTV. We are proud to be able to be with you this afternoon, just openly discussing hard topics. Today, I've kind of rambled on about regrets. I've rambled on about addiction. I've talked about the last show where my daughters were on the show. It was a very proud moment as a mother to be sitting openly talking about mortality and the reality of one day me not being here with them, which is, I think, every parent's thought about when we talk about death, it's like, oh, that the reality of won't be here maybe to tell them what to do or guide them or, give them money. My kids were teasing me last week. They said, Mom, all we want is the blue card. I'm like, the blue card? Yeah, Mom, the blue card. That's the one that has all your money on it. That's the only thing we want. So we might fight over the blue card. Uh, but truthfully and honestly, I walked away last week with such a humbleness in my heart, thinking, this may not really matter so much today to them or to me, but one day it's going to. And I think capturing precious moments like that is what it's all about. It may not make sense to talk about it today, but for people later, it will. And I know that my kids are going to have a better understanding that it's a real day and it does happen. And there's no way to ignore it anymore because it doesn't make sense to ignore it anymore. My oldest daughter, Brianna, had a wonderful piece of wise wisdom in that show. And she had said, when you think about it, it makes it easier to talk about it after the death occurs when you've had the conversation before. And I was just like, wow, that's so true, because having it now will give the permission to have it after. And what a concept. What a simple nugget of wisdom for us to not only in about death, but like in anything, talk about it now so that it's easier to talk about it later. Because I think what holds us back is the conditioning of maybe the world said you shouldn't talk about it, or maybe you got some pushback at one point from somebody, and just keep going. That's the best advice I can give to you today. And the reality is you're giving me advice. You're giving me courage. You're here listening to this show with me. I wouldn't do this if it weren't for you guys out there who give me the call or the text or the quote that fits perfectly into the things I talk about, or the Meredith out there sending me YouTube videos on other people who are out in the world saying similar things, being okay with talking about death while we're alive so that our families can have permission to figure out how to navigate life moving forward. It's just truly a gift to know that there's people out there that are listening and becoming better at the practice of discussing hard topics. I particularly focus on the death industry because that's what I do for a living. I'm very proud of what I do. I'm very fortunate of what I do. I feel like it's not a job for me. It is a passion. It is something I wake up every single day, and I never feel like I'm working. I feel like I am meeting the greatest people in the world. I get to talk about, for a few seconds of being uncomfortable, to walking away feeling just amazingly relieved of helping one more family not think about this anymore, other than what they've done to get it prepared for, so they can continue living and enjoying life and not being afraid. Us who get over the age of 50, I call it us at vintage age, it can become more and more stressful to us because we watch our family and our friends and people around us passing away. And it's that reminder that says to us, hey, you might want to take a look at this today and do something about it so that our own family's not struggling on a hard day, as they will already be having a hard day. So we don't need to make it harder, okay? That's the gift in talking about this today while things are okay. And even if they're not okay, it's still okay to talk about things that are not okay. So this was another quote that I received. It says, guilt is perhaps the most painful companion of death. And that was by Coco Chanel. You guys may have known who she was. I read a little bit up on her over the last couple days, and her first name was Gabrielle, and she was the Chanel lady, the woman who made beautiful accessories and very classy French woman. And, her story is her claim to fame was out of the loss of losing her mother at the age of 11. So she had gone to an orphanage, and because her father just couldn't take care of her and her siblings. So they ended up going to an orphanage. And she, at a very young age, realized that death happens. And sometimes those are the hardest realities. But I truly believe it can go two ways. One, it can go with the inspiration of somebody saying, look, I know that death happens. I've got one life to live and I'm going to get busy living it. Or it happens the other way of death has happened and it's destroyed me. And I don't know how to keep moving on and living, because if this is what life's all about, why even try? And believe me, I've been in both places. And so Chanel, Coco Chanel, she really just made a promise to herself that she wasn't going to live in poverty, and that she had a dream of making a beautiful life for herself, regardless of how difficult it was. People like that really inspire me. I've heard stories of some of the hardest things happening in a person's life, and they go out and they just make something of it, and that's inspiring. And then, some people, it's just hard. It's like, how do you get through that difficult part of not believing that you can move on and go through hard stuff? I think about my children, through their addiction, and how hard it was for them to even be in that place, because they don't want to be there. They don't want to be letting their mother and their dad down, or their siblings down, but yet they're in it. And for someone like me who's not in it, I sometimes don't know what to do or what to say. I was talking about that earlier. But today I am here to speak up and say, for anyone out there, any parent who's dealing with addiction in their family, the best thing is to ask for help. I ask for help all the time. I still do, because I need it. I need people around me just to give me a hug once in a while. I need people around me to just say, hey, if you don't have the answer, just talk with this person. They've been through it and they can help guide you, or just keep going, keep showing up. I think that's probably been the greatest gift for me, is keep showing up. I don't have to have all the answers, but if I show up, I might get one answered. And that that has been like so helpful for me, because I don't want to lay down and let things bury my head in the sand. I did that for years and that didn't work. Um, and I never want anybody to feel, if they're in addiction or in a difficult time in their life, or doing something that they know that's hurting them, I don't want them to bury their head in the sand either. I'm hoping to bridge a gap between the distances that addiction can bring, so that there are no regrets. Talking to a person in addiction, it's that same, like, oh, should I say it? Should I not say it? That same wall is there if I was to sit down and ask somebody about planning out their mortality. It's like, oh my gosh, am I going to say something wrong? How do we dance around this? No, I don't do the dancing around anymore. I will just simply say, I'm not sure what I'm going to say to you right now, but I'm going to say something. And you might like it, you might not, but can you tell me, how you're feeling? And I get a little bit further because, life's not perfect for me, and it's not perfect for most people, and we don't want it to be. It's okay to have it messy once in a while. I was thinking this morning about Permission Mission and where I'd like to take it. And I just want to put a vision out there for all of you. I'd like to take Permission Mission into a place that a lot of us can gather from all over the world and openly talk about mortality. Us come together and talk about the loss of our child, or the loss of our son through addiction, or the loss of a daughter to a car accident, or a mother that I just have admired my entire life, who just left so suddenly and I never got to say goodbye. Or just those things that happen, the people of shootings, the 9/11, there are so many tragedies that have happened in the world that we've just had to face and acknowledge and watch and see. But then we're left alone after, in the silence. I'd like to bridge that gap of the openness of us coming together and really coming together openly, discuss some tough days. I think about my grandchildren, and I think about my great grandchildren, and I'm thinking about yours too. When it comes to mortality, being a silent subject, but having the most access to it through social media, I can't imagine what this will do to them when they have no way and no outlet to openly talk about it. So let's talk about it so that great grandchildren will have a chance that if they're watching things on the social media that they have no knowledge about, or they can't comprehend how that person passed away, or their best friend overdosed, or their best friend committed suicide, and we're quiet, how is that going to help them by this being quiet? I can't see that happening. So I appreciate you joining in with me on this mission to bring this conversation alive. At what age should we talk to kids about death? Well, I think the earlier the better. I would say when they're at an age to comprehend things. I would say around 5 is a good age to not necessarily, it's not supposed to be heavy and dark. It's maybe take them to the cemetery, take them to a local cemetery and walk them around. Let them ask questions, because they will. So I'm thinking like 5 to 6 is when it is a great just introduction to it, that the cemeteries are a real place. And maybe even take them to a family member that you had to bury and introduce them there. So I hope that answers your question. I'd say about, 5 to 6 years old. Because let me see that question here. Because when I was 10 years old, I didn't think death existed until we had a loss in our family. Yeah. Yeah, Anna, I tell you, you're probably not the only one. And I can't imagine what that must have felt for you, getting the shock of your life, that all of a sudden life is good and then all of a sudden it's not. And then there be no discussion about why it's not. Um, you know, you make a difference in everybody's lives today, I'm certain, because of it. Because I know what you do, and I know that we do it together, and I know that you too are want to make the most of this life and live boldly and proudly and absorb as much confidence as we can as we raise our children to be confident, open, honest human beings. Uh, Girl, I just, my heart goes to you, because I can remember me being 14 and it just being like a smack in the face. Like, what? I don't understand. What are you telling me? Why didn't I hear about this before? And even maybe if I had heard about it before, I probably wasn't listening. But sometimes when it does happen, that's the gift of someone passing. They're leaving us a gift if we recognize it as a gift, that it will happen. It does happen. It'll continue to happen. And how can we just rally together as families to enjoy one another while we can, make amends quick, go out and use your voice to speak up and say the things you want to say, even if it's difficult. Trust ourselves a little bit more and not be afraid to talk to our own children. Our children don't listen to us, but they follow us. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. If we're okay talking about mortality, they're going to be okay talking about it. If we go after our dreams, they're more likely to go after theirs. They do not listen to us, with the exception of one day that they do. They will listen to us when we pass. They'll remember those things we said over and over again, and they'll carry them on out with their children. They will want to hear at your funeral service what other people said about us. I think about, some of the traditions I've had in my family with, I love the American flag and I love saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And every one of my children were taught the Pledge of Allegiance when they were small, 3, 4, 5 years old. They definitely knew it before they went to kindergarten, because every flag that I would see, I would stop and say the Pledge of Allegiance with them. And they just learned it. And that's one of the traditions I hope to have carried on with my family and my kids, grandkids, great grandkids. And so I appreciate you being bold and putting that question out there. And no, you can't do it wrong. Not today, because we're openly talking. And the only way to do it wrong is not saying anything at all. So thank you for being a diehard viewer. Thank you guys for stepping in every Friday or in your own time to watch the show. It does make a difference in my family. It certainly will make a difference in yours. And if you have any questions or any particular topics that you want me to talk about on the show, please go to permissionmission.com, fill out the inquiry, and just reach out to me directly so that I can get to know you. Also, be able to share on this show your question. I can use your name or not. It can be anonymous. That's fine. I just believe that there's a world of questions out there that we're still very curious about, whether it's death related or not. If it's a tough thing, I want you to share it. And I want to be able to get on here and overcome the fears that want to stop me, and keep showing up for you, for me, for our kids, our great grandkids, and even beyond that. So 5-second tip. I want to remember this every single week. The 5-second rule is to favor inside and value everyone and everything. Favor inside, favor who you are. You are the person that is most important, because when we put the oxygen mask on ourselves, we have enough to give everybody else. And value everyone and everything. We're all in this together. If somebody doesn't look like you, or someone doesn't act the way you want them to act, or somebody doesn't necessarily, for whatever reasons, you just don't want to talk with them or whatever, like I didn't with my children when they were in their addiction, I didn't want to face it. I encourage you today, let's do something different. Let's just go all in, not be afraid, trust the process, trust ourselves, and truly, truly make the most of this one shot that we have at living, and the one shot that we have at dying. I probably shouldn't say shot, but the one chance that we have at living, the one chance we have at dying, and just doing it the very best way that we can if we have that chance. And I always want to put it out there to think about those families who may have not had the chance to talk about it. You didn't do it wrong either. You had to deal with it the way that it came, and as my family did. And but moving forward, we have a different way, and Permission Mission is the way that we can do that. The next show is going to be it's going to be an interesting one. I will tell you that. My dear friend, a spiritual friend, Paul Bruno, will be joining the show, and he's going to talk about his walk through loss and through finding faith. And again, I talk about everything here on the show. So please join us next week. Paul's got an amazing story. And I think, like you'll fall in love with him because he's a funny guy, he's a neat guy, and he's got something very important he'd like to share. So I'm going to leave it at this. The last thing I do want to share with you quickly is the something very important that I do that's a passion of mine is where I work. We have what's called a spring festival. It is once a year that the company will allow us to help families prearrange with the largest discounts during a certain period of time. Well, starting today, it's starting up until April 8th. I am able to help families prearrange, giving them the most discount available, the one time a year, because we know that for those families who are serious about pre-planning, a discount helps. It really does. And I'm all about discounts raising 6 children, 9 grandchildren. I'm like, please let there be a discount. But more importantly, I think it's the way you'll feel after knowing that you've done something to prepare ahead of time and have it just the way that you want it. And know that the little bit of incentive is to, reach out to me and let me at least show you options and cost and what's involved. Because the worst day, and Paul will share a little bit more about this, is the day that you don't have a chance, that you have to get away, that you have to walk away from your loved one who's going to pass any time, and you're spending time in a funeral home that you don't want to be spending time at because you had a chance to prepare it ahead of time. So give me a call here in Las Vegas. For anyone in Las Vegas, I represent 5 cemetery parks here in Las Vegas, 10 funeral homes, and my number is 702-812-1435. Again, give me a call if you're interested in the Spring Festival incentive for pre-planning, but also you're able to call me if you have something you'd like me to share on the next show or shows coming up soon. I would be more than happy to do that. Thank you for joining me this week of Permission Mission. Keep following us on the WWDBTV.com, Facebook, also Permission Mission, and Mary McElhatton. Have a great week, everyone. See you next week.